Well, then, here we are. I'm wearing my cool shades because, I'm just so cool. My shades that I can't see out very good because the stupid white dots on them. I still think these are hilarious. I love these things. They're funny, especially if I want to, you know, make a point and then get out of here. No. Anyway, hey everyone. Came in even a little bit earlier than usual. A couple minutes. Because I'm anxious. I wanted to be on here. I'm so excited. I said that I'd probably be taking a break from the Wednesday shows for a while. But remember, I did say that, I may pop in on a Wednesday now and then. So this is it. Really, what's going to happen is, I guess my point is don't depend on me to always be here on Wednesday. But, it's just going to be playing it by ear, seeing how things go. So, as always, know that if we get cut off by YouTube, which hasn't happened in a while, thank the Lord, and hopefully it still won't, but I do have the backup stream link in the description box. But wait before you go there. Wait until I make sure. I like to give it a minute or two to make sure that's really what's going on when it acts all weird. And then I'll let you know in the chat. Okay, moving over to the second stream, and then I got to go make it public. And then, so you got to give it a couple minutes, but at least it's a little more set up and it makes that whole switching over a little bit faster. So I did notice that somebody already asked a question right off the bat. Good for you. Just bam. And then right off the bat, Deb was on top of it, giving a link to my chicken scratch. Now, if you are looking for a pre-made mix, I'm not sure where you live, and how far this company goes, but there's a brand called, I think it's Kaniksu. I know it starts with a K. It's made right here in Washington State. It's organic and non-GMO, but not USDA certified organic, which means they can sell it at a much cheaper price. Now, that's what I use for regular feed, and I can get a much better price on that than I can on the my sister must be Marco Poloing me back on the what's it called? It is corn and soy free, by the way. The other brand that I really liked, it's still a great brand, and it's all organic, non-GMO, no corn, no soy. Dang it. Scratch and Peck. There we go. That's the other brand that you can get. It is more expensive because it is certified USDA, because we got to have the government step in and tell us whether or not they can certify anything. There is a certain amount of that I do get. I do understand. But the thing is some of these certifications are so, they're just dumb, and they don't really certify it's going to be healthy. They can certify something's organic, but their certification criteria may not be as strict as somebody you may know in person that is growing organic, non-GMO stuff, and how they're doing it. And they might not be certified, but they're probably using healthier methods than what the government claims is certifiable. So anyway, I like the fact that, and you do have to have a certain amount of faith that they're telling you the truth, but you also, the person that's selling the non-certified stuff, but it's not much different than trusting the government to tell you that it's actually organic, because then you also find out there's like different stages. There's organic, which can be like, what is it, 70%, only has to be 70% organically grown, etc. Then you have 100% organic, and I think there's like 3 different levels of the organic and how it's labeled. You want to get it as 100% organic as you can. You think 100% would be the top, but I think that is. But maybe it should be 200%. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, Deb. Of course. The government, you can't trust them to tell you what's good for you. So, anyway, so yeah, I just was thinking, since I didn't have a second video to shoot today, I shot my this and that, and I'm like, I should just go live. I want to. And I just have some random questions and whatevers, and to just come in here and talk. Of course, now the sun is coming out, but that's okay. We've been working outside so much. My muscles are still sore. I don't think my neck is ever going to be the same. Though I will say that after we got in from digging up and moving yet another blueberry out of the pots on the deck, most of them are dead. They were so healthy when I first started my channel, but they just um I'm like, what's happening to my blueberries that were so healthy? They'd give me so much. And then they just kind of started getting more and more sickly looking and not putting out as much berries. And so finally one completely died. And when I dug it up and realized that what was happening is once they filled up that pot with the roots. I know I'm kind of sidetracked there, but that was the point of this live chat anyways, to just chat about whatever. That it got to the sides of the pot and then started rotting the roots from the edges of the pot in to where I could just pull those things up and there'd just be just the root ball and hardly any roots left. So I'm like, we did have we have two that was still alive. One I'm still leaving in the pot because I know it's going to be near impossible to get it out. The other one is actually a pretty new one that was gifted to me a couple years ago, so it was easy enough to get out, and it's good and healthy. And so what I did was I've been digging up some of my big marshmallow plants because I have way too many marshmallow plants, and I love them. They're so pretty when they get tall and they fill everything in. They're like this big tall shrub. But, making room in between some of those for the blueberries. So I got one moved out there yesterday. We moved one that I don't know if it's going to survive, but it had some new growth on it this year. We moved that one out, and we were going to move this other one that had one little twig coming out of it of fresh growth. Well, that twig broke off as we were pulling it up, and there wasn't much of the root ball left. So I'm just like, I'll take the little twig, I'll stick it in water, and we'll see if it will start to grow. Get some roots. And if so, we'll plant it. Otherwise, I might just go down to the nursery and pick up a couple more blueberry plants because I want to just fill up that whole back area and not put them in pots. Now, it was great for 7 years. They did beautiful in the pots. It was after I hit the 7-year mark that then they started going downhill. And these were big pots. I don't know how many quarts. People always ask me how many quarts, gallons. I don't know. They're like this big. Not that helps. Remember, I'm a short person, which means my arm span is 5 feet because that's how tall I am. In case you didn't know that. If you want to know how tall something is and or how long something is and you're 5 feet or 5.5 feet, just do your arm span like this from fingertip to fingertip and you'll have a pretty good idea. That's what I do. When I measure something, I was like, ooh, okay. When I'm trying to measure like bigger spaces, if I don't have my tape measure handy, because I don't have my go bag with me that has the tape measure in it or my purse because I'm outside. Anyway, yes, we missed you, Deb. We missed you last week. Or Sunday. We needed you for links, but what you were doing was far more important, and we're glad that you had a good visit. Now, before I get into my main topics that I was going to talk about, this is one of the topics, but last time I forgot to mention them on Sunday. I was going to bring this up on Sunday. So I got these funny little silicone finger cover things. They came in a whole package, and each color, there's 3 different sizes. So there's that size, and then that size, and then that size. Now, they seem silly, but they do serve a purpose. Let's see, that won't fit on there. But, because you have so many of them, I think that's all of them. I don't know. See, that one's just that one's more of a pinky size. And I have little hands, kind of longish fingers, but littleish hands. But Anyway, I got them. I wanted to explain this. I got them because this time of year, I'm sure some of you are dealing with this too. I tend to get a lot of cracks in my fingers from all the digging and the washing of my hands 50,000 times a day. Then I go, as soon as I wash my hands, I'm like, oh, and then I go back out and start digging in the garden. And sometimes I'll put on gloves, but that doesn't always help keep them clean. Half the time I forget to put on my gloves or forget to take them out there with me, or I'm out there doing something else and I'm like, oh, look at there. And I start digging and my gloves aren't with me. So between that and then the crocheting, doing a lot of crocheting, it causes me to get those cracks on my forefinger right there and on my thumb. And, those sore cracks. And so I initially got these just to help mostly with the crocheting, especially when I'm having to sew with a big fat yarn needle. That's when it causes a little more pain because of the way you got to grip it, or it causes the fingers to crack. And so that's why I got it. But then what I realized is that these things, sometimes I'll just put them on if I'm not gardening. I wouldn't wear these while I was gardening. Wouldn't be a bad idea, I suppose. But anyway, they got little grippery things on them. I don't know if you can hear that. What I found is that, well, I've always found that my skin cream, when I put my homemade skin cream on my cracks, it really does help heal them up and soften the skin. However, getting a lot of buffering, everything looks fine on my end, so it's probably you. See, let me see. Is anybody else? Was it just Tammy? Tammy, it's probably you. It's because you're a troublemaker. You know it. So, oh, Deb says mine stalled for a few seconds, but so far so good. Okay, as long as we don't get cut off. It's you ladies. It's your fault. So anyway, what I found is putting that skin cream on there, because then it always gets rubbed off, right? And then it's like you have to keep applying it and keep applying it. And so Teresa, she says it's good there. Okay, good. Good. Hey, Gudrun made it. I know it's hard. It's hard to try to make everything work. Our internet's been a little funky lately anyway. Even the Starlink, it's just kind of yesterday cut out on me a couple times. I'm like, that's weird. It almost never does that. But at any rate, so I put the skin cream on directly on the cracks and then slip these things in place so that not only I don't have to keep wasting band-aids, because sometimes that's what I do is put the band-aid on so it would keep the skin cream on there and also help protect the cracks. I'll put these things on, massive difference. And I'm not having to keep going through band-aids. So it keeps that skin cream in there. It keeps it warm in there too, so it's going to absorb better. These things work great for that. So even if I'm not needing to use them for doing my crochet stuff, just putting them on if I'm just sitting doing something where they're not going to be a bother. Like I said, there's like a huge pack. I got them on Amazon. So, and so you got all kinds of different colors. And like I said, 3 sizes of each color. So you have enough for all your fingers either way. But it's since I'm right-handed, it's always my right forefinger and thumb that usually get the worst of it. So that's been working really good. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case anyone's just trying to think of something that can help with their cracked garden fingers, where you don't have to keep using band-aids and going through those, and these should last forever. So even with my yucky internet, it's actually working right now. Waiting on FedEx right now for our Starlink thingy. Oh, I was holding off on the Starlink for so long, but our internet out here, yours is probably like ours was. We had CenturyLink, and there just really wasn't much to offer. We had CenturyLink, and then Starlink came along. There were a couple others that tried. They were terrible. And it was to where, in case anyone hasn't heard this story before, it was getting to where, I mean, when I first started my channel, it was bad then. And it would take about 3 hours to upload a video. And when I say upload a video, I'm talking like a 15, 20-minute video. And it would take about 6 hours if if it was one of me and Patrick, because when we're together, we would talk for like 30 minutes or more. And so, but then I don't know what happened. But yeah, those videos could take 6 hours. But then something happened. Something changed a few years back and it got worse to where it would take twice as long. So I could have a 15, 20-minute video that would take 6 to 12 hours to upload. So I'd set it to start uploading before I'd go to bed and then just let it upload through the night because it'd slow everything down. And it was such a pain. And finally, I'm just like, I can't. I kept thinking, well, maybe they'll fix it. Maybe they'll fix it. And then we'd have a day where things would work a little bit faster and then go right back to being slow again. I'm like, I can't. Maybe I will have to just go ahead and pay the extra. And it's been worth it. I'll say that. It's definitely been worth it. I can do so much. And then I realized, hey, I can start doing live shows again. So that's why I started doing live shows again. I was doing them years ago when our internet wasn't so terrible, but even then it was still, the live shows were a lot more, buffery and, probably worse than even some of you are dealing with the buffering right now than what you're seeing now. So anyway, it's been worth the expense, and it is a business write-off. So, it's a tax deduction since that's mostly what internet gets used for here. But let's see, what thing do I want to start off with first? Let's start off with the lids, even though in my this and that that's publishing on Monday, Tammy, it's expensive. Right now it's $120 a month. And I got the Starlink set up when it was on sale, so I didn't have to pay as much. But once you have the equipment, you own it; it's yours. And the great thing is you can pick up and move and just take it with you and rehook it up. I mean, it's not like you're bound to one place or you have to pay to have it disconnected and reconnected somewhere. It's not, once you have it, you have it. You own the equipment. So, and it's just a couple of pieces of equipment. But I don't remember what we paid for that, maybe 400. I remember when it was 700 for the same stuff that we just got. So at least the price on the equipment's going down. So you have to figure out, is it worth it? Because for me, that's, the monthly fee, that's like twice what we were paying. But we're getting like 10 times the internet too. So the equipment cost is just over 500. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, we got it. We happened to decide on it. Well, it was partly my youngest son that said, you should do this now because they're having a sale. So all together with tax and everything, it was like right around 400, but it was a good sale, like $200 off, I think. And then we also bought something else to go with it. That was with didn't we buy a special hardware or something? I don't remember. But yeah. Anyway, so like I said, I talk about this on the Monday, this and that. So you're going to hear it again. And if you've been paying attention to my posts and other such on my main channel, you would have already seen this, but I have more I want to say about this. So I was sent a box like this, the wide mouth and regular mouth lids, a few years ago. It was totally unsolicited. Hadn't even heard of this brand. And I'm like, so they just sent them to me because of my channel. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I was like, wow, these ones are actually made in America. Well, before I got those, another company had sent me some lids, totally unsolicited. And I know you guys have heard of them. I'm going to come back to this later. Never heard of them before I got them. So I was very, very skeptical about that. I have used them since. They do work. They work quite well. I'll say that. But I have more I'm going to say and why I will never buy them. And even more so now. So I've never had to buy them. I mean, I've never bought them because they've sent me a bunch. But these I would buy. Even though I got these for free. These I would buy. I'm doing pretty good for lids. But if I needed to buy lids, I would buy these. I've got a lot of Tattlers. I love Tattler lids. They're all made 100% in the USA. And but the problem with the tattlers, even though they're reusable over and over and over and over and over and over again, the problem with those is they're not great for vacuum sealing, and I don't recommend vacuum sealing with them ever. These you can reuse for canning, you can reuse for vacuum sealing, and they're great. So here's one of the things is that, and yes, thank you, Tammy. Now I'm an affiliate. This is why this is news, because it was taking them a while to get around to even setting up their affiliate program. And they had emailed me quite a number of months back. It might have even been a whole year by now. I don't know. Asking me if I'd be interested, that they're going to try to get a affiliate program going, if I'd be interested. I'm like, yes, definitely, because these are good lids. And they only finally just got it set up. I don't know what's all involved in setting up an affiliate. And so now I'm officially an affiliate, which means not only does that help me out, because anytime anyone orders through my link, I get 10% commission. You get 20% discount. Usually it's a 10 for 10. Like you get a 10% discount, I get a 10% commission. But this is even better for you guys because I still get the 10% commission. You guys get the 20% discount. I'm like, this is a great deal. This is one of the best I've ever seen when it comes to an affiliate. Most of the time it's 10%. Shepherd's Crook is the only one that has a better discount rate, but it's only on your first order. But theirs is 25%, but it's only on your first order. I'm going to talk some more about them in a bit. Still my very favorite coffee. So anyway, one of the things I noticed right off the bat when I handled these is how much thicker and heavier they felt, to the point that I'm like, I know these are heavier. And I was kind of doing this. I'm like, I'm just going to pull out my scales. And I weighed them and compared them to the 4 jars lids, to the Kerr lids, and, of the equal size, obviously, and the ball lids. The Kerr ball and the 4 jars all weighed exactly the same. These in both sizes were heavier. I mean, not by a ton, but heavier. So that proved to me that these are definitely thicker. They are definitely heavier. And I also checked this little gummy thing. I like the fact that it's blue because it makes it a little more distinct than all the other lids. And it is also thicker. The way the ball and Kerr lids used to be before their more recent changes, and that's why they don't work as well as they once used to. I mean, it used to be you could take okay, well, let me finish my thought. It used to be you could take your ball and Kerr lids, and if you were making jam, you'd put the hot jam in the hot jars. You'd put you make sure the rim is clean, put the lid on, put the band on, invert them for like 5-10 minutes or something like that, and then turn them right side up, and then they would seal. Well, it got to be that they might seal with the way they've done the newer lids and making them a lot cheaper. They would lose their seal over time because it wasn't a good enough seal. And I realized it was because this thing here wasn't as thick as it used to be when I was comparing old to new. So I don't think I've tried doing that method with these yet, with the jam. I can't remember. I'm definitely going to do it this year when I make some more blackberry currant jam, and hopefully we get enough raspberries where I can make raspberry jam. I'm going to try so I don't have to do the hot water bath, because that's going to be a true test to see how well these work for that. But I feel pretty certain these will work very good for that. Now, one of the first videos I did when I was talking about these a while back, I had tried vacuum sealing a jar with lids that I had canned with previously. Now, let me tell you something, because these are heavier, because they seal very tightly, very strongly. When you go to open them, you got to be very careful because they don't come off that easy. And if you pry too hard, you will make a dent. Now, if the dent is anywhere along here, you might not be able to reuse it for vacuum sealing or canning. But I did test this one. I mean, this jar is open because I just started collecting and dehydrating peppermint. That's one of the things that's on my dehydrator back here. I'm going to start filling up this bottom one here soon too. But I did test this last night, even though it's got the dent right there, and I vacuum sealed it, and it vacuum sealed up beautifully. And then when I go to open the vacuum sealed jars, they're definitely much harder to open. I mean, usually the ball and curve, when I vacuum seal them, I can just open them with my fingernails. I can't do that with these when I vacuum seal them. So that proves that they get a tighter seal. Now, so I love them. I love having both the Tatler and the Superb lids. So I'll probably, keep using the Tattlers mostly just for canning. Not saying I'll never can with these, but at least with a Superb, I'd still can with them, but these are definitely really, really good for vacuum sealing into jars. Now, let me tell you something about the 4 jars that most people even those who are, I think they might have an affiliate. There's a lot of YouTube channels out there promoting it because just like me, they were given free boxes, unsolicited. And then you feel kind of like you have to do a good review. No, you don't have to. I didn't ask for them to send them to me. Now, my review is they work and they work well. They vacuum seal good. They can good. I haven't personally had any issues with them. I know some people have. What bothered me was I'm looking on them and it says, they give you the little, the Facebook and Instagram thing. It says 4 jars USA. And supposedly it is a family-owned US business. However, I pay close attention to stuff because I'd never heard of this brand when these came in. And I did some digging and found out they are made in China. Well, at the time, oh, good. Your Starlink is there. You're going to be happy. You're going to be amazed at how much faster it is. At the time, the claim was that, and this was like 2021 or something, that they were, currently they're being made in China, but they're going to be moving their factory to the US. Well, it still hasn't happened yet, as far as I know. I did some more digging yesterday, could not find anything on their site or anywhere claiming that they actually have a factory in the US now. Now, my guess is with everything going on, that might up their game and make them, try a little harder. But this is where I don't so much have a problem with them currently getting, because it can cost money to build a factory and blah, blah, blah. I get that, where you can just have them made in China. But and then while you're trying to, get the money together, make a, whatever. Okay. That's one thing. What bothers me is how deceptive they are. So just like how their little, their at thing for Instagram and Facebook says at 4 jars USA. Has anyone used the Superb jars? They have jars now? I didn't know they had jars now. I know Azure Standard has jars, and they sell their jars with the Superb lids, which I thought was really cool. But here's the thing. The box, I want to show you something. You see that barcode? Now, can anybody tell me whether or not they can see writing below that barcode? And if you can you tell me what that writing says? I'll hold it up here for a few seconds, not too long because this box is full and it's kind of heavy. And my hand is getting sore, and so is my arm. Yeah. Can anybody read that? Can anybody even see any words there? Well, I'll tell you. There are words there. Right there. Right there. There's words right below that barcode. Guess what it says? Made in China. You can only see it with a bright light, and especially if you have at least 50-year-old eyeballs with your reading glasses on. It's not just that it's small, it's that it's very, very light gray against a white background. It's almost white. So that's them being honest that it's made in China. But unless you know to really, really look for it, you won't see it. Then if you go to their website and you're in the US when you go to the website, it's going to say 4 jars USA. Well, you know why it says that? is because they have a Canadian site too. 4 Jars Canada. So if you go to that site, it'll say 4 Jars Canada and have the little maple leaf. So as a US citizen, you go there and you're like, "Oh yeah, see, they're made in the USA." If you do a search on Google and it pulls up the assist, which I believe is AI, that will tell you it's made in China or made in the USA, not in China. That is a lie. Because then you know how that assist works is they'll link it to a couple other articles where this so-called claim is made. But if you go to those articles and read them, that's not what they say. They say they're made in China. But because they also say in there that they're going to be moving their factory to the USA, see, that's what it's picking up on. Here's the other thing that I just noticed when I went to their site yesterday. This is yesterday because I wanted to look again. I'm like, maybe before I say anything, I want to make sure they see if maybe they have finally moved their factories to the US. Maybe that's why this keeps saying this on the AI thing. Well, I would assume that if they finally had their factories in the USA, they would be promoting that big time all over their website. Nothing. Nothing. So I went to their FAQ section and got to scrolling down and finally found a place where it says, it doesn't say where are these made. The question says, who makes these? But even that question wasn't answered. It is so weird. So if you go to their website, check it out. Go to the FAQ. Yeah, you have to, I think it's on the main page and you scroll down on the homepage and you scroll down and you read what it says. It says nothing about who makes it or where it's made. Nothing. The closest it comes to is it says there's canners all over the USA that are using and promoting these lids. So what happens is if you're just skimming through there to look for either China or USA, your eyes are going to fall on USA and go, oh, okay, they're made in the US. Nope, that's not what it says. You got to read it closer. And this is why at first I was trying to be nice about it because I thought that, well, you know, if they're trying, that's cool. If they're trying to get a factory in the US, that's cool. But the fact that they're using these sneaky little deceptive things like using writing that you can't see unless you have a magnifying glass and a bright light, or putting USA in their name, or some of these other things, just like I said about the FAQ. I mean, to me, that's deceptive. Why not just be upfront with people? Have an FAQ where it says, where are these made? These are currently made in China. And if they are truly trying to move their factory over to the USA, they can add that in there. But they need to be clear instead of trying to, okay, well, we're being honest. It says on the box it's made in China. Yeah, how many people are going to know to look there? The only reason I knew to look here on this box was for some reason that this is the second box they had sent me. It's more recent box. The very first box they sent me years ago, you could actually see it better. It was still much lighter in writing than everything else. But at least if I was to hold it up to the camera, you would have been able to see it. So at any rate, part of me kind of feels bad. I don't like talking bad about companies, but I don't like it when companies are deceptive. And there's a lot of canners, and a lot of them probably don't know. A lot of these other YouTube channels that are promoting the 4-jar lids probably don't know, because they probably made the same mistake of seeing, 4 Jars USA, and, going to the website and seeing these little things and it's saying USA. It's not, and apparently it's a US based small business. Now, I'm not even sure, family owned business. I'm not even sure about that now. So if you're going to use deceptive practices to try to sell your product, I just cannot promote something like that. And I think people need to know. Now, if you don't mind buying lids that have been made in China, that's fine. I'm not going to badmouth anyone who chooses to do that. And like I said, They are good lids. They work well. They work as well as the ball and curl lids used to work just before they made the change. But the Superb brand is definitely better. So there's my little spiel on that. And like I said, you're going to hear a lot of this again if you watch my this and that on Monday. But that's okay. I think it's important people understand this stuff. And it also helps you learn how to look for things. If buying American made products or buying organic or whatever, if these things are really important to you, then you're going to learn how to look past the little deceptive wording. Or made by veterans. But what veterans? It might be veterans in a completely different country, and a lot of times it is. So, not that that's always a bad thing, but a lot of times you might get the impression that, oh, this is all in English. They show American, clearly American people here. And so you're assuming it's American veterans. Heidi, most of those who promote 4-jars have stated that they are made in China till they can get, yeah. I didn't know that because like I've said before, I hardly ever watch them. I just sometimes will see thumbnails of somebody talking about 4-jars. I don't know. But the thing is they've been saying that about the factory for a long time, for several years. But even that wouldn't bother me, Carol. It's the fact that they're being sneaky and not being totally upfront. Not the YouTubers. I'm not talking about the YouTubers. I'm talking about the company itself. Being sneaky about how they put that made in China on there, putting it in writing that you can't even see. The way they're being sneaky about just about everything. It's very deceptive. So anyway. Now, so I do have, I guess I only brought in one jar that has a Superb lid on it, vacuum sealed. I have others, but I brought these in because I just finished filling up 1 pint jar. I want to do probably 3 more of the rhubarb. My rhubarb looks probably the healthiest this year that I've ever seen it look. It is amazing. And so is my peppermint. My peppermint is going berserk. I am so thrilled. I mean, years ago, my peppermint was doing really good, but for the past few years, it's been, I still get peppermint. It's just not been great this year. It's doing so good. I am so thrilled because we go through a lot of peppermint tea in the year. And I was being rather frugal since we let the garden rest last year. I didn't harvest any peppermint. And so I was trying to be frugal with the tea as we were working through it this last year. But then I got up and I got, because it's up on a top shelf. So I had to get my ladder, climb up there and look. And I realized I still actually have a total of 5 quart jars of peppermint that I put up over the years. Because I always put up extra. Not just enough to get us through a year, but enough to get us through 2 years. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to put up, since I didn't get much peppermint the year before and I didn't harvest any last year, I'm going to have to put up a lot this year. Well, I'm not sure if I will. If I'll have to, I'm still going to try to put up 4 or 3 at least quart jars, which I shouldn't have to try. It should be easy. It's just the time getting out there and then a whole bunch of other stuff coming in. So I've already got this one almost half full. I've got more peppermint in there along with some Lovage, which that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. I'm not going to go into depth yet on the benefits of Lovage because I'm going to do a standalone video on that. One thing I can say is it's high in quercetin. And Lovage has, and I've shared this before, it has a very strong celery taste and it is perennial. It just keeps coming back and getting bigger and bigger and it will turn into it's like the marshmallow. It'll get very tall. It can get 8 to 10 feet tall and then it dies back for the winter and then it starts growing again. And I cannot believe how fast my Lovage is growing this year. It's just like, it's blowing up. So I have some more of that in there too. So people were asking me when I showed that picture Like, well, what do you use your lovage leaves for? Well, this year my plan is to just simply add them to my greens blend along with the dandelion, the nettle, the carrot tops, and some other greens I'm going to put in there. And that way, not only am I getting the nutrient denseness of the lovage, but the adding that nice celery flavor in there too, because I like to go out there and pick a leaf or two of it and just eat it raw as I'm walking by. It is so good. So if you like, maybe you need to start liking lovage. You don't like it. Yeah, if you like celery a lot, you'd like it, but it's a much stronger flavor. My guess is if you cook with it, the flavor will mellow out. Excuse me. I haven't tasted it since I've dehydrated it, so I don't know. And then this is the stalks. These were smaller stalks because I wanted to start doing it now. But even since I harvested these several days ago and dried them, the stalks coming in are even bigger and thicker already. And I know they're going to get at least 8 feet tall because they did last year. I just didn't harvest anything last year. But anyway, I figure I'd cut up the stalks into little pieces and then use that as a celery replacement in soups and whatever I want to add that into. I could just mix it all together. It wouldn't really matter, I guess. But I'm just doing that for now because this is my first year harvesting my lovage, other than, picking a leaf here and there. Excuse me. And let's see. So the peppermint and the lovage are a couple of the newer things for this year that I've been harvesting and putting up. Along with the rhododendron flowers, I did get a full jar of that and some oil going. And I'm looking forward to doing that video. I do talk a little more about that in the Monday video, so I'm not going to go over all that here. But let's come back to vacuum sealing. So I talk about this on Monday, but I want to talk about it again today. So these are pistachios I got from Costco some years back. I don't know how many years ago. I know it's got to be at very least 3 years ago that I vacuum sealed into this recycled green olive jar using Patrick's chamber. Now, you might have seen that. I just spit again. You might have seen that little short that came out earlier today it's just 6 seconds long. I had to have Patrick hold the camera for me so I could use my spoon. Because whenever I vacuum seal these type of jars in the vacuum chamber, they seal so tightly. I mean, it's very convex concave, not convex is this way. It's very concave. And I'm like, wow, you can tell that has a good seal. And there's no way I can just open that with my bare hands. Patrick might be able to, but I wanted to get a video of hearing that sound. So I use that spoon. I always use like a soup spoon and just put the tip of it under there and then pried it so you could hear that air escaping. That just shows you how good of a seal it was. And boy, these are so good. They're not one bit stale. They're not at all rancid, like nuts can get. If they're not vacuum sealed, they will turn rancid and or stale. So good. And I had to open that jar yesterday because my grandbabies absolutely love pistachios. They found out, all 3 of them, even little teeny tiny Rowan. She's 2 now, but if you saw her, you would swear that she's only 1 because she's so tiny. And I know I've said this before, that one's a little ball of fire and she's very devious, but she's also very cuddly and sweet and I love her to pieces. But anyway, she kept coming over. More, don't you want more pistachios? I'd give her a few. It's like, don't eat too many. These things will make you really gassy anyway if you eat too many of them. I've tried to start lovage seeds 3 times and I can't get them to germinate. Any advice? Diana, what I always do. Oh, I'm sorry, Tammy. Probably can't even hear me. Oh, what a bummer. That's too bad. Anyway, Diana, let me come back to your question there. Anytime I'm starting a new seed especially something I've never grown before and I don't know how it's going to do, because I learned right away I can't just go direct seed a bunch of stuff and expect it to grow. I always start it in small pots indoors or in the greenhouse and or someplace warm. And so I can watch it. And also here's the good thing about that is that, if it's fresh soil, unadulterated soil, soil that no other seed could have possibly fallen in, you see something coming up out of that pot, you'll know what it is. So I always use like we go to the nursery or whatever and get some fresh potting soil, even though I got great healthy soil in my garden. I don't want to use that because I don't know what all seeds are going to be in there. So I want to know, especially with something I've never grown before, what's going to be coming up in that pot. So I always do it that way. Typically, I'm starting them indoors early in the spring. But if it's later in the year and you have a greenhouse, you can put it in the greenhouse and start them in there. It doesn't mean they have to stay in there. I mean, Lovage here doesn't seem to need a greenhouse. We live in a cool, wet climate, and it's just growing beautifully here. And the seeds were originally sent to me from a subscriber years ago, and I didn't plant them right away because I forgot about them. But then it took, it took time for to get to where it was big like it is now. But anyway, so that's too bad. Tammy's having issues. It makes me feel bad. I don't know. I feel like it's my fault. I don't know why. Oh, bummer. Well, she can come watch a replay or watch the side video I make out of this or the standalone. I do notice that every time I turn. I noticed this last time though that the out of my corner of my eye, the picture seems to jump. So I don't know if it's doing that on your end. But when that was happening on Sunday and I downloaded that video, I hardly saw any of that in the replay in the downloaded portion. So I don't know if that's doing that live or what. I think she means lovage. My lovage plant took over 20 days to germinate. Erin, I knew what you meant. I think we all knew what you meant, but yeah, that's so frustrating. It's frustrating that they don't make it so you can't go back and edit your comment. You have to type it again. You have to remove it and then type it again. 20 days, that's a long time. Yeah, it does take a while for it to germinate. I found that out. So howdy everyone, peeling greens off of my picked dandelions. Hope everyone is well. Good, Robin. Now I'm still getting tons of flowers out there right now, but what was I going to say? One thing about dandelions, since we're talking about that some people might not know or realize, especially if you're new to like using the dandelion, is unlike with a lot of other herbs, you harvest the echinacea, the lovage. You want to harvest the leaves, all the leaves you can harvest without harvesting too much because it needs the leaves before it flowers, because once it flowers, the leaves get smaller, smaller, smaller. However, with the dandelion, the first thing that comes out of the ground is a few little small leaves. Then it will start making flowers almost immediately. And that's for, how long does it do it? 2 to 4 weeks, somewhere in there. I don't know. I haven't really paid that close of attention. But once the flowering stage slows down, the leaves will get bigger. So then with the dandelion, that's when it pours all its energy into making big leaves, which is like opposite than most other plants. So it's funny how that is. So when it comes to dandelions, you want to harvest the flowers first and the stems. I always just eat the stems raw. I love them. I go out there, pick dandelion to pick a stem when they're fresh. You don't want to wait till the stem has old, where the flower is starting to go to seed. Then the stems get kind of tough and the flavor isn't as good. But I love the stems fresh. They're, as far as eating any part of it fresh, that's my favorite part to eat fresh. And I just know it's good and healthy for me. And so I love that part of it too. I'll eat the leaves fresh too, and sometimes the flowers. But at any rate, so I will, you harvest those flowers as soon as they bloom the first time. If you wait until maybe the next day when they open up, they may not be as nice. You can still do that, but yeah, as soon as the sun hits them, they open all the way up. That's when I cut them and then dry them, and then they dry up beautifully. Like, I didn't bring my jar of dandelion flowers in here. then you harvest the leaves, and my leaves, no, I'm not kidding. Okay, my leaves will get about that long, a lot of them, and that wide. So they will get, if they have a nice rich soil, they'll get, and they don't get too much direct sun. If they get a lot, like an all day direct sun, the leaves will never get that big, kind of like the way violets are. But if they get at least some protection from all day sun, those leaves will get massive. I notice the biggest leaves I get are on the west side of the house, where they only get the late afternoon sun, and it's not even really hot by that point. It's so late in the day. Those are the ones that get huge, put it that way. So yeah, so dandelions, and then, so flowers, then the leaves, then the roots last. Now, I have an old video of me harvesting roots out in the main garden section in the early spring. And the reason I was doing that then is because, well, I needed to thin out the dandelion because we're just getting ready to plant. And also that was like on a nice day, that was the best time to do it because the soil is nice and loose, and they'd just pull right up. And you'd see, if you go watch that old video, some of my roots were like this long and longer. They were massive roots. So when your soil is rich and it's loose, those roots will get huge. So at that point, since the leaves and the plant itself was still pretty small because it was early in the season, I wasn't even bothering with that part because I knew I was going to get plenty of leaves and flowers later from the rest of my dandelion plants. And I had too much going on. I didn't want, some people got mad. It's like, I can't believe you threw the rest of that plant out. I was like, don't worry. I'm going to have a lot more flowers and leaves coming in. A lot. So now my my south facing little narrow, it's just a narrow strip about that wide that goes all along that wall there facing the south. Most of my dandelions grow there and in the west herb garden. I get some beautiful, beautiful dandelions, and then I pretty much pull them up from most other places because, I don't need that many. I get a lot. So anyway, so 2 years in a row, no lovage terminated. Really? I wonder if I can't remember who sent it to me and where they lived. I was thinking they lived in a southeast state. So I wasn't sure if they would grow for me. That's another reason why I was being very careful with how I was getting the seeds started. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were living in a climate more like ours. So I'm not sure about that. I just know it loves it here. The lovage loves rain country. At least it seems to. Okay, what else did I want to talk about? I know I was going to talk more about the coffee. Well, somebody had a question, sent me an email, and they were all very, very concerned because they were making a recipe it was supposed to be, I think, for allergies. They were following somebody else's tincture recipe. Now, it's great. People make up their own recipes. People share them. I do it all the time. However, this is where people need to realize that it's okay to do it your way. Every single tincture I have ever made has been my way. I might have, on a couple of original ones, looked at a few different recipes that some people had, and okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'm going to do it my way. Because it's going to be based on what you can grow if you're growing your own herbs, or what you can obtain if you can't grow it. I mean, sometimes it's still hard to get certain herbs if you can't grow it. And like nasturtium leaves are almost impossible to find dried. So if you can't grow them or not already grown them, you probably won't be able to run out and buy dried nasturtium leaves unless someone is selling them. And no, I don't sell any of my dried herbs because it's inevitable somebody will ask. But so there's that, and then also knowing what herbs are going to work best for you, which can take time by trying one at a time. Just like me when I made the rhododendron flower tea without the center, pull the center out of the rhododendron flower. I started by just putting a flower, just the petals part, into a cup and poured some tea, herbal tea that I already had made over the top of it and letting it steep for a little bit, and then sipped on that 1 cup of tea all slowly, all take a little sip and wait, go do something else. Come back, take another sip. I did that all day long. Took me all day to drink that 1 cup of tea because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to have a reaction. Then the next day, I made a whole pot of the tea and made it much stronger. But I still didn't guzzle it down. I still kind of worked on it throughout the whole day and the next day. It took me a couple of days to finish it. But that's the way it should be anytime you're trying a new herb, is you need to isolate that herb, try it by itself and see if it's going to work for you. Because you could have a reaction to it that is going to be unexpected, because you might not know if you have a certain allergy, or maybe you're on a medication and don't know if that could possibly interfere. Here's the key. First of all, you should always do your own research if you're on medication. Always do your own research on the herb before you start taking it. But in most cases, what you're going to find, if it says you shouldn't take this while you're taking that, you shouldn't have this herb while you're taking that medication. In most cases, not all, in some cases, it could cause maybe more of an overdose, because it's like you're getting twice the amount of that same kind of thing, even though one's natural and one's synthetic. But in most cases, at least what I've seen, is that the reason they tell you not to do that is because the herb will make the medication ineffective. So what does that tell you? That tells you the herb works better. So if that's the case, stop taking the medication, start taking the herb. But don't just stop taking any medication, especially if you've been on it for a long time. Always, always, if you're trying to do it, if you're trying to do it solo like I had to do, because we didn't have naturopathic doctors around here back when I took ourselves off the thyroid medication, I researched for months, then started coming up with a plan, and then slowly weaned ourselves off the thyroid medication while adding more of the foods that I knew were nourishing to the thyroid and get it working as it should. Such as growing the nettle. That was a big thing for me, because I found out that nettle is very, very good for thyroid health. So that's why I made sure to get nettle seed and plant it, and I've had nettle ever since. And that's why it's one of the main things that goes in my mixed greens blend. And why I always try to make sure I get plenty of it put up. Use it in tea, use it in meals all the time. Well, I don't use it in tea all the time, because I sometimes forget, which reminds me, another little chatty thing. I'm thinking, okay, when I first started growing all these different herbs, I was making my own herb blends, tea blends, I mean. And then I stopped doing that, because what I mean is making like a premix blend. Like, one year I had chamomile, so I was adding chamomile and yarrow flowers and peppermint and dandelion. I had a whole bunch of stuff mixed in there. And I didn't really like it a whole lot. I mean, I did eventually use it up, but so what I started doing is just doing the herbs separately, like the peppermint. I'll always keep this separate, but it doesn't mean I won't ever make a blend. Sometimes I mix peppermint with other things. But when it comes to putting it up, I'm always going to keep it by itself. But I am thinking about creating a tea blend that I'm going to have mixed together and ready to go, and making sure I get nettle in there, just like I do with the greens blend that I use as a vegetable that goes into all my sauces and soups and casseroles and gravies and meatloaf and meatballs and hamburger patties and all that. Anything I can add it to, it goes in there. But I want to do the same thing with the tea, so I'm getting more. Both getting more of that nettle, because the nettle has a mild enough flavor. I think it would mix well with the peppermint or mullein or anything else. So, listening on my way to work from North Queensland, Australia, from the land of Oz. Good to see ya. Sometimes I'm surprised when people from Australia or New Zealand can actually make it in, because I know the time is just it's just really whack. Well, it's even weird for people in the United States. There's Tyler. Splitting oak. Ooh, that's some dense wood, huh? We have all softwood out here mostly. Well, not all. We have alder, but that's a common firewood, but it's not people's favorite because it rots quickly. But most everything else around here is going to be softer woods. Like, well, cedar, you usually save that to use as a fire starter. But fir, hemlock, those are like the common ones. Spruce. But oak, I can't imagine having to split that. We don't get oak out here. I wish we did. It's such a great wood for building. Anyway, let's see, 5:38 a.m. Fun for you. I'm usually up by if I wake up at 4:30, that's usually kind of late. If I wake up at 5, that's really late. I usually am up between 3:30 and 4. Not by choice. That's just when my body tells me that it's time to get up. I wake up and then I start thinking, and then that thinking doesn't stop, and my brain says, "Get up, get up, get up, get up. Start editing videos, do this, do that. Get ready for the grandbabies to be here," whatever it is, even though I may have hours before they get here. Oh, funny. So yeah, the 3 grandbabies right now, Jace and Rowan and Jackson, things are not that they don't have these moments where you're just like, it's insane right now, with all 3 of them here. But they're getting to that age where Rowan's 2, Jace is going to be 3 in a couple weeks, or about 3, right at about 3 weeks. And then Jackson is 4.5. And so they're at this age where they're really starting to all play very nicely together, especially Rowan and Jace. They play very good together. Other than the occasional spat. But I love it. They love to go out in the walkway here between Patrick's shop and the house and run back and forth, because I don't let them play in the backyard because the backyard is full of chicken poop and garden. So they don't have a lot of outdoor area to play, but the back deck, which I have a little swimming pool all set up for them when the weather gets warm enough, where it's warm enough that it will stay warm enough for a long enough period of time to make it worth it to set up the little pool. But, Patrick will take Jax down to the property if he's doing stuff down there. And sometimes he'll take Jace with him too. So, but we only have one car seat. So if they're both here on the same day, it doesn't always work. He usually just takes Jax at that point. Let's see. What am I? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Sorry. I'm eavesdropping on my own chat. So what? Okay. I was talking about the herbs. So here's the thing. I never got to the question. I got sidetracked. So the question was, this lady was following a recipe and she was very concerned because she realized that instead of adding, for an allergy blend, instead of adding so much of this particular measurement, I never use measurements when I'm making extracts and tinctures of nettle, she had accidentally added wild lettuce. And she kind of freaked out. She's like, "Oh no, what am I going to do with this?" And so she was able to sift out the ginger root and the licorice root, which she should have just left it all in there. And then was like, "But what can I use this for?" I'm just like, so I did a little bit of research. She had goldenrod was one of the things that were in there. So I did and that's not one I've deeply researched. And even things that I have, I forget over time. What are these good for again? I've already forgotten, especially if I'm not using it on a regular basis. So I had to look it up. And what I was specifically looking for was anything that of the herbs that she already had in there that would be good for pain and inflammation, because I know that's what wild lettuce is good for. She could have left the ginger in there because the ginger is good for that. And so come to find out that, goldenrod is good for inflammation, not necessarily pain, but inflammation. But you want those two to go together. So I said you can just make a pain and inflammation extract out of it, either the way it is, or you can to replace the things like the nettle that didn't get added in there. Just go ahead and add like some feverfew and or valerian leaf. You have a valerian leaf also makes a great analgesic without being as strong as the root and make you kind of like a little loopy or whatever, or have very vivid dreams. So I personally have only just I've found wild lettuce growing a couple of times and have tried it for pain, the leaf, and I didn't find it to work as well as the feverfew and valerian. But that's the thing, is everybody's going to be a little bit different. But at any rate, um, I bring that up because I don't think we have to freak out so much about mixing herbs or getting the recipe wrong. Just kind of look at each individual herb and say, oh, maybe I can do something different with this. Yeah, there are going to be certain herbs that you shouldn't mix together, but I don't think it's near as common as people assume. Because I mix herbs all the time. All the time. I just create recipes. I'm like, huh, this sounds good. And that's how I came up with my pain remedy and inflammation remedy extract, was just years of kind of playing around with the feverfew, and then like, wow, the feverfew is really bitter and nasty. It works. But then also trying to find ways to mellow out that bitter flavor, but still get the powerful pain relieving benefits out of it, and inflammation relieving benefits. So I finally came up with the perfect blend. It took me a few years, and that was the feverfew. And I don't use exact measurements. I usually just use equal amounts. Sorry, the dogs are going ballistic because people are, you know, they dared to walk by out front. How dare they walk down the street, not even on our property? Anyway, so mine is equal amounts of feverfew, valerian leaf, not the root, cat mint, and then echinacea leaf. Those four are the main four, I believe. Sometimes I forget. And then I just make an extract using my homemade wine. Sometimes I'll throw some honey in there too, just to help with the flavor, especially with that one. And it it really mellows out that very, very strong bitter flavor of the feverfew. Which, by the way, it's funny. I've had people ask me if can I add the feverfew leaves to my greens blend? Well, you can. The question is, do you want to? That's going to make your food taste terrible if it's something you're adding to your meals. Now, dandelion leaf can be a little bitter, but it's not, compared to feverfew, it's not bitter at all. And when it's dehydrated, you lose a lot of that bitter flavor in the dandelion leaf. But eating it fresh and raw is very, very good for your digestion. Anything that's bitter is very, very good for the digestion. So feverfew, dandelion leaf, dandelion root, the dandelion stem, anything else that is edible and it's naturally bitter, very good for digestion. That's why, even though I brought this up before, that for Passover, there was the three main things. There was the lamb and the bitter herbs in my mind, in the bread, the unleavened bread. Those are the three main things about Passover that God stipulated. And the bitter herbs had a significant meaning to represent the bitterness of the slavery and all that. But you think about this, God doesn't just do something just because, this is to help remind you of that. But he also knows what's good for our gut. He knows that those bitter herbs are good for your gut. And if you're eating it with your meal, it's going to help with the digestion. I love that. I love that kind of stuff so much when you learn about that stuff and you're just like, when, the so-called punishment of we're having to work we're having to work the ground for the rest of our lives. We're having to, till and work the soil, and we're getting our hands in the dirt. And that was our punishment, right? But what does that do? When we get our hands in the soil and there's those enzymes that are in the soil, and that when you get your hands in there and those enzymes get into your skin and they get into your body and they help to release the endorphins, which then make you happy. This is why most people, once they get into gardening and you're out there and you're working, I think this is why every time I go out in the garden, I do something, then I got to come back in and edit. And it's like, I want to go right back out there. I can't sit still. I have to get back out there and get in the dirt and find something else to dig or plant. And because God knew what he was doing, he made those enzymes in the soil to release those endorphins that make us happy while we're out there doing that work. So the very thing that he made to be our punishment can also bring us happiness and health. I love that so much. It's just that we don't get to sit back and be lazy and let food just fall in our lap. Or just, everything just grows without having to be worked. One of my favorite verses, well, it's actually 2 times in the Proverbs, excuse me. Worded slightly differently each time, but it's basically that he who tilleth the ground shall have plenty of bread. I'm not going to quote word for word because do not have photographic memory. But one of them says, but he who chases after vain persons, I don't remember. Anyway, you know how Proverbs is typically like a positive and a negative. If you do this, and here's this good thing. If you don't do this, here's this bad thing. But yeah, I love that. If you tilleth your ground, you're willing to work, you're willing to get out there and do the work, you're going to have plenty of bread. I don't believe in God, but gardening definitely makes me more mellow and healthy. That's great, Robin. I mean, that's great that gardening does that. And see, that's the beauty of it. No matter whether you believe in God or not, that part doesn't matter. Getting out there and working your garden, working in the soil is so good for the mind, for the body, for just everything about it. And you get to reap the benefits of the food you get or the medicine that you're growing. It's so great. It's just a beautiful thing. So we don't dare go barefoot. The clover has bees. And I've had so many kids get stung on their feet. That's the thing, is that barefoot is good, because you can get your feet in there too. And you can even just double up on that. But it's not for everyone. I have this thing where I really hate when my feet get dirty. I don't know why I hate that so much. I hate it so much. On top of that, there's chicken poop everywhere. There'd be always something squishing between my toes. So I have special shoes that always stay outside. They're Kizik's. They're the boots, and they're leather, so I can wear them out in the water. When it's squishy and gross, I can just slip my feet into them. I can walk out there, and then before I come in the house, I slip my feet back out. It doesn't matter if I have my arms full of produce. Let's see, what else was I going to say about that? There was something else. Oh, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the whole thing about, they say the more skin you have exposed to the sun, the better, because you're getting more vitamin D. But you know what? You don't have to run around without a shirt on. You can go out there. Usually I've shown people before where I'll take like a t-shirt like this, and then I have these little ties that I make, like I crochet a tie, like I've got something like this. And I'll have 2 of them. And on warm days, or, when the sun is out, I will just tie those up. So not only am I a little bit cooler, but my whole arm can get sun, your face gets sun. That's really all you need, despite what they say. But yeah. So, but what I was going to say about the feet, when I was a little girl, barefoot all the time. All the time. And this was in Wenatchee, where we had goat heads and red ants. Not fire ants, but they were still red ants, and they still bit you and they hurt. I only got bit by a red ant once in all that time. But I don't know how many go heads I had stuck in my bare feet. But for some reason, there was some point in my life where I was just like, I hate having dirty feet. Maybe it's because, like with the boots, I can kick off the boots and walk in with clean feet. If your feet are dirty, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? I just stepped in chicken poop and they're dirty from the soil. What am I supposed to do? I mean, I'd have to have something where I can wash my feet off before I came in the house because I'm pretty picky about that. Anyway, so I think that's what it is. I think that's where it started is I can't take my feet off. It's like the dogs. I wish they would learn how to wipe their feet off, but I can't make them wear shoes and take them off. They haven't figured out how to wipe their feet off before they come in, and I can't remove their feet. What do you do? So anyway, it's funny I have this sitting here. This is my old whistle from teaching dance. So when I started getting the nodules on my vocal cords and it was getting harder and harder because you're trying to say stuff over the music's playing, it's kind of loud and the kids are starting to get loud and you're trying to get them to hear you, but your vocal cords are sore and it's getting harder and harder. I started using the whistle. That was great. And in this room, before it became what it is now, and it's just this big empty room, let me tell you, that sound of this whistle was loud. And so I crocheted myself this little thing so I'd wear the whistle. And sometimes I didn't always remember to have it on. And if they were getting out of hand, I'd walk over and pick up my whistle and put it around my neck. Sometimes that's all I had to do. Because they didn't like the sound of the whistle because it was like, it hurts your ears in this room. Probably still would now, even with all the noise absorbers, the furniture and whatnot that's in here. But I set this here because I thought if you guys ever get naughty, I can blow my whistle. And I'm like, no, it's going to be way too loud. And then I'd be like, class, be quiet and pay attention. I should have said that on Sunday. Everybody was blah, 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 blah. I'm like, are you guys even listening to what I'm saying? But that's okay. What's the purpose of having a chat? If you can't get in there and chat with each other, you can always come back and listen to my blah, blah, blah later. Something like a boot scraper. If it's anything like my hands, Tyler, I mean, I come in, I'm looking at my fingernails. They're still dirty. This is after I mean, I've tried so many things in the garden season to get my hands to not look dirty. And I don't tell anyone, okay? Shh. I've even soaked them in bleach just to see if it would make a difference, to see if it would get all the dirt that gets into all the little crevices and cracks that no matter how hard you scrub with soap and hot water. I've even used Comet. Don't tell anybody because that's really bad. But I just wanted to see if it would work. No. It's like, what I did do the other night, this is far more natural. And it helped. Okay. Well, and I don't mind good, clean dirt. It's just, when you're doing videos, you're preparing food and I've had people say stuff. I can't believe you would touch that food with those filthy nails. It's like, I scrubbed them, believe me, and well, I'm, so you always got somebody judging you about your dirty hands and nails, especially if you're preparing food. It's like, trust me, it's clean dirt. It's clean. I scrubbed it until I was practically scrubbing the skin off. I do try to keep my nails shorter though this time of the year. That does help a little bit. But anyway, what I was going to say, this did help and was actually a lot nicer for my skin. Was I decided, I soak my feet a lot of times. Sometimes I soak them just to, make them because I feel better. I feel cleaner, in the evenings if I soak my feet. Sometimes I soak them because they hurt. But I thought, why not just soak my hands? So I filled up the tub thing with some hot water and I poured in homemade vinegar in there and just soaked my hands. I think I might have put Epsom salts in there too. I didn't really need it, but But that was nice. That actually helped quite a bit. It softened the skin too, because vinegar's good that way. So I use my skin salve on my hands before I head out. Yeah. And the problem, I mean, I'll take like tweezers, the kind that are angled, and I'll use that to scrape out. And even then, I still will have stained fingernails. And it gets worse, of course, when the tomatoes are growing. You guys will get this one who grow tomatoes. And you're out there breaking off the leaves or the suckers. You're out there every day having to break off more leaves, more suckers, so that they can get more airflow and they can put more of their energy into making the tomatoes. And then you end up with what do they call it? Tomato tar, don't they call it something like that? And it's like your hands are perpetually black. I wash my dishes by hands all the time. It doesn't do any good. It does not get the stains out of my fingers or my fingernails. Does not matter how hard I scrub. I could probably I think the only way I could get them totally, all the dirt or stains totally removed would be to just go ahead and just remove all the skin and the fingernails along with it. That would probably work. I wouldn't be able to do anything with my hands for a long, long time, but hey. Yeah. Well, Dana, I've heard that you shouldn't use scissors on your tomatoes. I've done that too. I didn't see any problem with it, so I don't know. But usually what happens is I'm out there doing something else. I'm like, oh, I need to pinch off, and I don't have my scissors handy anyway, so whatever. I meant to but here's the thing. Let's go back to the dirt and the enzymes. Remember, hands, dirt, enzymes, endorphins. See, it's healthy for you. You don't have to have perfectly clean hands as long as the dirt is clean, as Tyler said. Clean dirt. I can remember one time, this is back when, I was a kid. Well, we do have a dishwasher. We just only use it once or twice a year. Only so we can make sure it's running good. At any rate, when I was a kid and I'd wash them, I put some dishes in dishwasher, and I didn't get enough of the stuff off of them. And of course it, you know what happens. And then you got dirt caked on your dishes. And my mom was upset with me for doing that. And my brother's like, well, at least it's clean dirt. That memory has stuck with me forever. At least it's clean dirt. Let's see. I meant to get the salve under my nails. Oh yeah. That's a good idea. Because what I was going to say about the scraping, I do that, and that does help. And sometimes I'll do that if I'm just desperate and I don't want anybody looking at the dirt under my fingernails. The problem with that is when you scrape like that, you're removing some of the fingernail and making it thinner and thinner every time you do that, which would be another reason why your fingernails are more likely to break when you're, doing all this gardening. But I still do it because I just, and then I get the dirt all embedded in there. But yeah, I swear I scrubbed, I don't know, 50 times maybe today so far. Of course, then I turn around, go right back out there and get my hands in the dirt again. Like every time. Gosh, it's already an hour and 23 minutes in. Well, I'm definitely not going to start another feed if I get cut off. But let's see. I did have a couple other things, but I talked a lot more about that stuff than I thought I would. I know Linda was telling me about I wouldn't have known anything about it, about that massive power outage across Spain and Portugal. I never heard anything about it. But boy, I tell you, that's something that makes you think. Just bam. That is a pretty massive area. That's a pretty wide, broad area for everyone to lose power. And you just never know. You just never know. So I have a family member whose power got shut off yesterday. She got home from work, found out the power was off. And she had no candles. She had no way to heat or cook. You'd think you wouldn't really need heat, but we're kind of in that time of the year where it's warm during the day, but it gets really cold at night. So they had to bundle up last night to stay warm. And yeah, no way to charge anything. And you just never know. You, she was worried about the food in her refrigerator getting spoiled. And so just even having some just minor things on hand. Um, if you have a lot of space in your freezer, keeping a whole bunch of ice packs in your freezer. Because I said, if you want, if you're coming into town, I've got a whole bunch of ice packs I keep in my freezer that I can give you that you can put in your fridge until the power gets restored. And that should help, use your refrigerator as a cooler. In fact, I know I've shared this story, but I think it's been a long time ago that I did. Maybe not, but so quite a number of years ago, this wasn't due to the 150,000 power outages we have, but this was just our refrigerator was just going bad and it wasn't working at all anymore. And so it was not, the freezer side was working, but the fridge side was not working at all. And so what we were doing is I was keeping ice. Let's see, I had like plastic milk jugs that I filled up with water and I would freeze them, on the freezer. Well, in one of our chest freezers, I'd freeze them. I'd have a whole bunch of those. And I also, even though we hardly ever drank soda, for some reason I had some soda bottles. I don't know why, the 2-liter ones. Those are good for putting in the door. And so I was freezing those and I'd have enough that I would switch them out every day. And that's how I was keeping my refrigerator as cold as a refrigerator. It was like using the refrigerator like a big cooler, but I'd have to be intentional. And I'd have like a milk jug of the ice on one shelf, another milk jug on another shelf, another milk jug on the other shelf. And then the pop bottles were a good size for putting in the door so that all through the refrigerator, there was ice. There was something frozen. Then the next day I'd get up and switch everything out until we were finally able to get a new refrigerator. But I did that for quite a while because it took us a while to find a new fridge that was going to fit into that section because they kept making, I don't know if it's different now, but it was like refrigerators kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the section we'd have to remove a wall or cut out part of the cabinet. And it's like, don't they just make standard refrigerators anymore? Just a standard plain refrigerator. I don't care if it has an ice maker or a double door or any. I just want a refrigerator. I was like, man, can we just go find a 1950s refrigerator? Those things were made sturdy. And I think it would actually fit in here because that was back before they made them to feed, a whole army. Anyway, it's not that I don't like having a big refrigerator, but we finally found one. It took us a long time to find one that would fit in there. And it wasn't a side-by-side. Our previous one was a side-by-side, but now you can't get a side-by-side that would fit in an area that small. So it's just, I don't care. Just an old-fashioned style with the freezer on the top and the fridge I'm fine with that. I don't need all the fancy schmancy stuff. Anyway, but yeah, that worked. Just keeping and just rotating. So if that ever happens to you, if you lose power entirely, if you're keeping your freezer, like all your empty space is packed full of ice packs that you get from, your butcher box, your, as your standard, if you don't have a drop point, you're ordering that way. A lot of times you might order certain cold things that have ice packs, your Misfits Market, whatever it is. Costco. Well, I don't know. Costco around here doesn't do the cold and frozen to ship anymore. I don't know if they do it in other places, but they don't here anymore. I was bummed. But at any rate, or milk jugs, pop bottles, anything that you can freeze, fill with water and freeze, and keep your freezers full. Not only will that be energy, it'll save money in energy because the more full your freezers are, the less energy it's going to take to keep everything in there cold. But then when something goes wrong, you have a power outage, you can at least the all that ice in there is going to keep things colder for a long period of time. And if you absolutely have to, you can at least take some of the ice packs out and keep it in the fridge portion. So there's an added tip. So since I've already gone on for so long, I probably won't talk about my other points that I was going to cover today. But I will save those if I decide to go live next Wednesday, which I might. I will talk about that then. And let's see. I do want to say though, you might have seen it if you're kind of watching both. I did just have a short publish, another short, so 2 today. One 6 seconds long, and the other one like 42 seconds long. And it was just of some of my apple blossoms, my apple trees. That's the other thing. My apple trees are exploding this year. And I think it's just really cool that last year, I think I shared this on Sunday. Last year, it was kind of one of the smaller amounts of apples that we saw. But since I wasn't doing a harvest and putting them up because of the sabbatical rest, I needed to have a break from getting too many apples. But now this year, the apple blossoms, especially on the young tree, just look amazing. The younger tree blooms, they're a little bit different varieties. I don't know what the older tree is for certain. I know the younger one is a Gravenstein, and it always blooms first, and it has much bigger blossoms with less pink in them than the other one. The other one has more pink, which makes them look prettier, but I noticed these difference, but that one always blooms first. So the older one is just starting to open up its buds. So one of the little clips in there where you see the little pink closed buds, that's from the old tree. But man, it's crazy. Things are just exploding this year so far. Things look great. So I think that giving the gardens a rest last year is really paying off. And it's very cool. So, one more thing before I go. My eggs, so I can't see it. My little incubator's over there. It's on top of my propane camp oven / stove that we have as a backup in case, for power outages in the middle of summer when we don't have fires going. Anyway, it's sitting over there. I got 12 eggs in there. They should be hatching out tomorrow. So the next time you see me live, I might have as many as 12 chicks, depending on if they all made it through. So I've been trying not to handle them as much this time. Just kind of just let it be. Let it be. We'll see what happens. So anyway, there was a few things, but like I said, I'll cover some of the things I didn't get a chance to get to. My throat's getting sore anyway, and probably do that probably next Wednesday. But no promises. If things are crazy next Wednesday and I don't have time, I won't. But I'm going to try to do it because I do like doing the live shows. They're fun. They help me de-stress a little bit. Anyway, so I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. And thank you for taking the time to stop in here and say hi, even if you could only be here for a few minutes, and putting up with some of my religious talk. Because I know not everybody in here believes in God, and that's fine. You're absolutely love that you guys still come in here despite that and we can be a part of all this together, and you put up with it. Thank you so much for that. Love you all. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Take care and God bless.